always try to remind myself that I haven't done anything wrong.
It's not a good image for our sport, that's for sure.
I would never, even in my entire life, ever try and dope in this sport.
I had sleepless nights, during this time. Now again, it's gonna be not easy.
He has won the past 2 Grand Slams, but less than a month after his Australian Open victory, Jannik Sinner is the talk of tennis after agreeing a doping deal which has seen him banned for 3 months. The timing means the men's world #1 will be back for the next major, the French Open. Convenient, critics say. The controversial agreement between the Italian's legal team and the World Anti-Doping Agency officials has prompted accusations of favoritism and led to some players questioning their faith in clean sport. But what really happened behind the scenes? And what impact might this case have on anti-doping? Little over a week ago, Sinner was practicing in Doha as he prepared to play in the Qatar Open. But he knew things might change quickly. Behind the scenes, there were discussions that would rule him out of that tournament and the next few months on tour. Sinner's lawyer, Jamie Singer, was deep in phone calls with WADA's most senior lawyer. After that, surprise news emerged that the 3-time Grand Slam champion had accepted an immediate 3-month ban. Sinner and WADA announced they had entered into a case resolution agreement over his 2 failed drugs tests last March. An independent tribunal accepted Sinner's explanation that traces of clostebol, a banned anabolic steroid, had entered his system through inadvertent contamination from his physio during a massage. Sinner's coach also addressed the situation and explained how Sinner tested positive 2 times.
Back in March at Indian Wells, and Giacomo Naldi, who is the physiotherapist of Jannik, put his hand into his medical bag. He cut his finger on a scalpel that they used to cut off the calluses off the feet. And on the pinky finger, it was quite a big cut. I didn't see it. The other person that was in the room at the time was Umberto Ferrara, and he is the physical trainer of Jannik. And Jannik also didn't see it. And I walked into the room and saw that he was putting a white bandage on his finger, looked and asked him what happened. He said he cut his finger. And I said, is there anything we need to do? And he said, no, all good, no problem. And that was the last I actually thought about it. So what happened after that was Jannik actually saw Giacomo that night, saw for the first time that he'd cut his finger, asked him what he did, asked him if he'd used any ointments or creams or anything to put on that finger to help the healing. He said no, which was the truth at the time. And then what happened after that was between Umberto Ferrara and Giacomo Naldi. So Umberto had a spray, which is quite common in Italy. I'd never heard about it before and never seen the spray. And he offered it to Giacomo to help with the healing. He had it for personal reasons, I believe. And from that, it had a banned substance inside that spray, which is quite common in Italy. And there's actually been a few cases of Italian players that have tested positive before with that particular spray. And over the course of the next week, Giacomo continued to use that spray to help the healing of his finger, unbeknownst to any of us. And with the treatments that he was giving to Jannik, somehow it passed from Giacomo's finger through to Jannik, and he tested positive. That's pretty much the summary for us. Jannik, everybody has to know that he had no part in this at all. He didn't elect to ingest anything. He didn't take any tablets. He didn't intend to cheat. Somehow he's tested positive through this connection with this particular spray from Giacomo through to Jannik. We don't know how. Working on the feet, a massage, whatever it may be. And he's given 2 positive results because of that.
WADA, while not challenging the tribunal's overall decision, appealed against the panel's ruling that Sinner bore no fault or negligence. However, this would have carried a ban of 1 to 2 years at the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Although WADA initially called for this punishment publicly, eventually its officials came to feel this would not be the right outcome. With time ticking before the CAS hearing in April, WADA made 2 approaches to Sinner's team for the case resolution agreement. WADA's general counsel Ross Wenzel said there wasn't a fundamental change in how the agency viewed the case, but it came down to what it considered fair. Had the case gone to CAS, the outcome would have either been a ban of at least a year or Sinner being cleared. Some top players continue to believe Sinner has been given preferential treatment because of his status. They publicly criticized this decision.
It's not a good image for our sport, that's for sure. A consensus, or I would say a majority of the players that I've talked to in the locker room, not just in the last few days, but also last few months, that are not happy with the way this whole process has been handled. The majority of the players doesn't feel that it's fair. Majority of the players feel like there is favorism happening. It seems like it appears that you can almost affect the outcome if you're a top player, if you have access to the top lawyers and whatnot. So we've seen on the social media Simona Halep and Tara Moore and some other players that are maybe less known that have been struggling to resolve their cases for years or have gotten the ban for years. The system and the structure obviously doesn't work of anti-doping. It's obvious. We have to choose. The inconsistency is something that frustrates all the players. It's like if you are going to treat every case individually or independently, which is what's happening, then there is no consistency, then there is no transparency, and some cases are transparent, some are not. We know that there's a kind of a vague rule that I read that it's within a reasonable time you have to provide information where you got contaminated substance, and he provided it in this, as I understand, 6-hour window, but it's not. It doesn't say in the rules it's a 6-hour. It's a reasonable time. So what's the reasonable time? Obviously, sometimes in one case you can have a larger contamination. Sometimes, in some cases, you have a smaller one, like in his case. But the problem is that right now there is a lack of trust generally from the tennis players, both men and female, towards WADA and ITIA and the whole process. So we either going to agree that all the cases will be transparent from the beginning, or all will be kept private until they're resolved.
It's not something we want to see in our sport, these types of news, regardless if he did something or not, or any player did. It's just noise that we don't want, So I understand the frustration of, has he been treated the same as others? And I think this is where it comes down to. I think we all trust pretty much that Jannik didn't do anything, but the inconsistency potentially that he didn't have to sit out while they were not 100% sure what was going on. I think that's the question here that needs to be answered. But look, it is what it is, and we need to trust the process as well of everyone involved here.
I would never, even in my entire life, ever try and dope in this sport. This is something that, especially going through an injury like I went through, and obviously there are things out there that could speed up healing, help me get back to prime level, help my recovery. There's so many things out there that are prohibited in our sport that I could have been doing to get me back quicker. 2 years out of the sport in my prime. Basically, I was 28, competing for Wimbledon, US Open, and I had an injury where I could have been doing things to get back, but that's just not who I am. I have to be outspoken about it because I don't think there's enough people that are speaking about it. I think people are trying to sweep it under the rug and saying that, about the amount and all this. It's just like, it's not nothing about that. It's like, there's not fair treatment for every single player. We've seen that with Max Purcell. And the reason that's different is because he went to the authorities first. He admitted that he had done something, that was on the prohibited list, and he was outspoken about it. That's how it should be, rather than all this sweeping under the rug and not knowing and there's question marks. Okay, he's number one in the world and he's an amazing tennis player. I've never said he's not. And I just think the treatment has to be fair for everyone. And I just think that it's been handled horrifically in our sport, and 2 world number ones both getting done for doping is disgusting for our sport. It's a horrible look.